Now, you muddy fugglers, get in here, sit down and behave yourselves. We're going to read some news. The news that Elon Musk is now filthier rich. He was already very rich before, but now he's even richer. He's the richest man there ever was. I think he was before. He's pretty darn rich. And that gets on some people's nerves. I'd like to be rich. That would be quite fun. But what exactly led to Elon Musk being so wealthy, and is it a good thing? We'll see on this article on The Verge, written by Jess Weatherbed. $1 trillion is a stupid amount of money. That kind of wealth is inconceivable. But we tried to make sense of it anyway. I think this is a growing sign of the direction that hypercapitalism will take us. There'll be many more trillionaires in the coming years. Elon Musk is now officially the world's first trillionaire. That is a colossal amount of wealth, and by proxy, power for one individual to have. It's true, but also at the same time, I think he's beholden to a lot of people, so I wonder how many of his daily decisions take into account what other people around him are saying. I would say probably quite a few. Its scale, 1,000 times more than a billion, is difficult to fathom for those of us who aren't among the 3,363 billionaires that currently exist in our world. But let's try to comprehend it anyway. The most frequently cited comparison is time. If you were to count out 1 million seconds, it would take you 11.5 days. 1 billion seconds would take you 31.7 years. Bloody boring, wouldn't it? But 1 trillion seconds would take 31,700 years. To reach that point today, you would need to start counting in the Paleolithic era, around the time that Neanderthals went extinct. How about distance? Let's say you earn $1 million for every meter you walk. If you started at Times Square in New York City, you could make $1 billion just by walking down the street to the Museum of Modern Art. But to reach $1 trillion, you would have to walk 621 miles, which is about 23 consecutive marathons according to Google Maps. That's equivalent to walking from Times Square to Dayton, Ohio, and it would take around 9.5 days to do so. Okay, but that's manageable. People have done that. Just saying. You could also visualize by weight. As a US dollar bill weighs exactly 1 gram, a consistency that's designed to make it easier to count stacks of money, 1 million $1 bills would therefore weigh a metric ton of 2,204 pounds, which is roughly equivalent to a small hatchback car. $1 trillion $1 bills would weigh the same as 5,000 of the biggest blue whales the world has ever seen. They can reach 200 metric tons piled on top of each other. The Wall Street Journal has a cool visualization if you want to see how this looks in pennies. 1 million pennies stacked would reach about a mile high, or almost 4 Empire State Buildings. But a stack of 1 trillion pennies would reach the moon and back twice. You get the idea, and the vast sum of money could do many, many things. $1 trillion is more than enough to solve world hunger by 2030, according to the United Nations, which estimates it would take $93 billion per year. That leaves Musk with $628 billion, enough to also fund the $600 billion that OpenAI is expected to spend on compute by 2030. And still have enough change to be richer by 99.9999% of the global population. Now, if you're casting being rich as evil, then I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think having money is necessarily a bad thing at all. And also, all of these things you're mentioning are spending an imaginary $1 trillion, but none of them are taking into account making any more money back, which is what he does. He employs a lot of people, he generates a lot of revenue for a lot of people and for the country at large. If we split 1 trillion across the entire 349 million US population, then every person would get $2,865. Or if you theoretically had the liquidity to put 1 trillion into a bank account with a standard 4% interest rate, you would earn roughly 110 million every day, almost enough to launch 2 Falcon 9 rockets. Just remember, the next time someone tells you to count your pennies, Elon Musk won't be able to do so in a lifetime, even if he recruited his small army of offspring to help. So that's some perspective. It's an awful lot of money, but there's an awful lot of stuff that he is responsible for having kick-started. Now, I am biased. I like Elon Musk. I like what he does. I like the fact that he is a figurehead of a industrial renaissance within the United States and the Western world. I think he is the kind of person we should all be supporting more than tearing down. So the United Nations don't like him. That's unfortunate. And neither, I assume, do CNN. For our second article along this subject, this article on CNN, written by Chris Isidore. He's not a door, he's a man really. How much of Musk's wealth comes from government help? Virtually all of it. Elon Musk has many people to thank for becoming the world's first trillionaire. He does employ a lot of people. His company's engineers who produce technological breakthroughs, Wall Street investors who were eager to show him with their dollars despite questionable financials, but most of all, American taxpayers and government policymakers. There would not be Tesla and SpaceX if it weren't for the government, said Ross Gerber, CEO of investment firm Gerber Kawasaki, and an early investor in Tesla. The federal government awarded SpaceX more than $500 million worth of grants in its early years, and that $500 million is just a fraction of what Tesla received from government grants, loans and contracts, and regulatory policies. That's not to say SpaceX's success and Tesla's roughly $1.5 trillion valuation are entirely due to federal spending, but both companies teetered as startups before receiving taxpayer subsidies. All sorts of companies receive subsidies specifically during the pandemic period, and depending upon what state they're in, what jurisdiction, they may receive tax rebates and subsidies and whatever. This is not unique to Tesla, I imagine. The question of how much Musk's $1 trillion net worth comes from the government is not as simple as it sounds. By some measures, only a small portion of his wealth is thanks to taxpayers. His companies have received only tens of billions from government contracts and programs, but it's not just the dollar amount that matters, it's when it was received. Well, he's not exactly receiving money from the government if he's fulfilling a government contract. I mean, it is money from the government, but it's not like a frivolous gift to him or a unjust tax rebate or whatever. It's presumably programs to launch satellites and do other research and defense stuff, maybe. SpaceX's first major windfall was a $278 million grant from NASA in 2006 to develop the Falcon rocket system and Dragon space capsule. The space shuttle program was ending, and the US needed a new way to get astronauts and cargo to the International Space Station. It was the first of more than $500 million in grants SpaceX would receive, according to data from PitchBook, which tracks the valuation of private companies. This was about half of their capital that they raised to that point. Casey Dreyer, chief of space policy at the Planetary Society, a public interest group advocating space flight, said ahead of the SpaceX IPO. This was a substantial commitment that NASA provided. And while NASA has enjoyed the benefits of SpaceX's success, with dozens of humans ferried to the space station aboard the company's rockets, it didn't benefit like those private investors. Right. So, how much did they receive initially? $278 million contract to develop the Falcon rocket system and Dragon space capsule. So that was a specific contract. That was a job, basically. Here's a job for you. Do this job. Here's some money to do the job. I don't see why that's a bad thing. The people who put in the other half of the capital from that era are about to be made multi-billionaires, Dreyer said, and the support from NASA didn't stop with the grants. Musk has acknowledged the company was almost out of cash by the end of 2008, when it got critical, and then unprecedented. $1.6 billion contract from the American Space Agency. Okay, so they got another contract from NASA. Is that not a good thing? I think that's a good thing. Maybe we should not worry about that. By comparison, Tesla has received relatively modest government contracts in the past, but it got a lot of help getting started. Critical help. In January 2010, Tesla had sold less than 2,000 cars in its entire history. Was that because it was new? Virtually all of them electronic oddballs based on sports cars from Lotus, a relatively obscure British company. Then Tesla received a $465 million low-interest loan from the Department of Energy months before its initial public offering. With the loan, the company developed the Tesla Model S sedan, its first major success. Tesla paid back the loan early through proceeds from an additional sale of stock in 2013. Okay, so they paid the money back. So, loan paid. That's not an issue then. That's a good thing. So obviously he has good credit. A $7,500 tax credit for EV buyers allowed the company and other automakers to sell American-made EVs at a higher price than the market might have otherwise allowed. Tesla buyers received federal tax credits worth an estimated $3.4 billion before the peak ended in 2019. Tesla then cut prices to maintain demand. Given how much it had to cut prices, the tax credit likely allowed Tesla to bring in more than $1 billion on cars sold in America than it could have without the tax credit. The tax credit was restored in 2023 as part of the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act, but Republicans in Congress and the Trump administration ended the credit across the industry in September 30th, 2025. I hear that Elon wasn't happy with that. But Tesla's most significant financial support was not from tax credits or EV buyers. It was from a government program to reduce carbon emissions across the automotive industry. Under the regulatory framework, car companies had to meet emissions limits. If they didn't, they would have to buy emissions credits from companies that did comply with the limits. And the company that always came under the emissions limits and had credits to sell was Tesla, since all of its vehicles are electric. That meant virtually every other company in the US was lining up to pour money into Tesla's coffers as a result of the regulations. Those credit sales accounted for nearly 25% of the company's revenue in 2008 and 10% of its revenue throughout the next 5 years. Between 2008 and 2019, sales of regulatory credits generated more than $2 billion for the company. And Tesla might have died without those funds, a fact not lost on Elon himself. Perhaps it's a savvy business plan to start up an EV company so he could then also sell those credits and offset other issues. Sounds like a good thing to me. In a tweet in 2020, Musk admitted that Tesla was nearly forced to file for bankruptcy as recently as 2019. Even after it survived the bankruptcy scare, it wasn't until 2021 that Tesla was able to post a profit without the help of credit sales. Since 2019, sales of regulatory credits have brought in another $12.3 billion, with all of that money falling pretty much directly on its bottom line. That credit revenue is likely to dry up in the future, though, as Republicans in Congress have essentially eliminated the program. But Tesla's value no longer has much to do with its cars. Instead, the company's share price is based on Musk's promise that Tesla will soon offer widespread self-driving robo-taxis and humanoid robots, a promise he has long sought to deliver, but to little avail. I mean, his robo-taxis look pretty good. They look very sleek compared to Waymos. I see loads of Waymos around. I like the look of the robo-taxis more. Wall Street's faith in Musk is the main reason his wealth has reached previously unimaginable heights, at least for the moment, as long as his company's share price remains near where they are. But that faith comes because at the start of his businesses, when he needed financial assistance the most, it was the US government, not Wall Street, that provided the needed help. It turned out it was definitely good for the government, America, and society that these companies exist, so I don't regret that the government gave him the money, said Gerber, the early Tesla investor who is now a Musk critic. The mistake the government made is they should have an equity stake. Interesting that this article appears to try and make Musk look bad for having received government contracts, but there are plenty of other companies out there that also receive government contracts. And that's a good thing, is that not? We're making sure private industry has the means to research and develop and monetize new technologies that are developed in the States. It's a lot of money, Elon. It's an awful lot of money. If you fancy throwing some my way, I don't mind. But I think he's probably deserving of it. I mean, how many products does he have out there at the moment? We've got SpaceX, Tesla, XAI, Neuralink, Starlink, a whole bunch of things. And they're all very future facing. They're all taking technology forward. He's an industrialist. He's a modern day industrialist, similar to Isambard Kingdom Brunel or someone like that in the past. So yes, he's got lots of money, but he's also a philanthropist. He's actually pushing humanity's survival chances forward, in my opinion. So he has my support. I don't think that he's that extravagant with his spending. I don't know. He's very much in the public eye. I don't see him buying humongous yachts and stuff, and if he did that, we'd know about it. So he's, I think, fairly humble in the fact that he seems to be dedicated to his businesses, and I like the output of his businesses, so I have a lot of hope for those. Yeah, good chap. Good chap, that. But that is it for now. Make sure you hit that like button if you indeed like me. It's very helpful. You can also follow me wherever you're at. But that is it for now. And the only thing I have left to say is, Pigwig, out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oink, oink, ree, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squee. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, ree, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 ree, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squee, squeal, ree, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, ree, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, ree, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 ree, 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 oh. Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, ree, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, ree, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 ree, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal. Snort, shuffle, oink, ree, squeal, ree, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, ree, squee, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, ree, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 ree, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal, snort, snuffle,